Sean from Oklahoma, what's up?
How's it going?
Going all right.
Oh, great.
What do you want to talk to
about? Recently I stopped by an abortion clinic, and they're out there with the Jesus signs, and I talked to a guy holding the Jesus sign, and I got into a conversation with him, and he said he told me that evolution couldn't be true, and there's proof that there's a museum in Texas that has proof that it's not a possibility, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there is a museum in Texas that has some stuff talking about evolution not being true. I know there's at least one creation museum here somewhere. So yeah.
Okay, so the basically what I'm going with is basically like, say when this guy was younger, I would say he's about 70 years old. White people in general, in the days of slavery, before that was abolished and all that. Their narrative was to say, and they were fine with saying this back then, and now they're saying that evolution can't be a thing, but they were saying that black people came from monkeys, right?
And during the times of slaves, I don't know if that, I don't think the idea of people coming from monkeys was really a thing until Charles Darwin came around. And Charles Darwin wasn't really around doing that during that time. I don't believe.
Wasn't it 1840s?
Well,
isn't that when
now I don't know, actually, because I thought
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in general that I've heard white people, even from the my age, saying that black people came from monkeys. So that would say that they basically evolved.
Yeah,
but
I can see
if there's no.
If we start from that premise, if you're saying like, what that specific belief about black people, then yes, that wouldn't make any sense. But I think there are specific Christian narratives about people of color that I think are even more interesting. For example, the Mark of Cain is one where they talk about this idea that when Cain and Abel were in the garden, and then Cain slayed Abel, that his descendants and some thereof were became black people, and then the others descendants became white people and stuff. So like there's a lot of sometimes racist narratives that are a part of Christian history that I think if you're a Christian you have to take a steady look at. Another example is I interned a little bit at Baylor University in their archives, and I found these amazing pamphlets from the 1960s when Virginia v. Love was happening, okay? Like when the Supreme Court decision of legalizing interracial marriage across the country, because it was like a states' rights issue. And that's how they put it in their things, just like they talk about homosexuality today. They said this is a states' rights issue, but also they quoted the Bible and they quoted Christian ideas saying, hey, the idea of interracial marriage is one, not biblical, and two, not Christian. Now, you can have debates on how mainstream this idea was, but before the 1960s, yeah, like it was pretty popular. It definitely wasn't like a totally fringe view. It was talked about.
But we're
aware of this as racism, but they're saying it as if they believe evolution for a particular race of person, even until it doesn't fit their narrative anymore.
Yeah, for sure. And people will mix and match narratives totally to fit their purposes. Yeah.
Sure. And they also have a sort of a science fiction, a pop science fiction understanding of how evolution works. Like there's black people are, according to them, lower on the ladder than white people and Asian people and Latino people and other types of people. And that there's an end goal, or that there's a constant evolution, like a Pokemon or something, where that seems to be the understanding. But the other thing that makes me think of that, what you talked about, was this idea that Southern slave owners or slavery proponents were arguing that the Bible supports a subordinate position for their slaves. And that's just proof that you take this book, it's got all kinds of stuff in it, all kinds of words, shit, applesauce, shit mixed in with the applesauce, and you can use it to defend any position you want to. It's like reading the tarot, right?
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing. I looked it up. Charles Darwin was on The Origin of Species was 1859. So it would have been just coming out around the time of the Civil War.
Yeah. So not as and that's a brand new book coming out. So it's not like everybody was in on the idea yet. So yeah.
And the slave owning South may not have gotten a hold of the latest in scientific tomes.
Yeah.
And if they got it, what do you think they're going to do? Well, gee whiz, I'm going to use this. They've got guns. They've got their weapons and their force. They don't have to justify what they were doing. They just did it.
Yeah, but Donnie, you make an interesting point, and I think this is a problem that I think even atheists make the mistake of looking at when we talk about the Bible, because they say, "Oh, the reason why you're doing this is because of the Bible," and that's only part of the truth. They're doing it because they want to do it. The Bible is just the justification. Like the Bible is always going to be the justification for whatever the acts they're doing, because, like you said, you can pick an action. I can show you. There's Bible verses that'll show you that's a good thing, and Bible verses that'll show you it's a bad thing. I mean, you can play with this stuff all the time, and people do it all the time and abuse, these texts for whatever fits their narrative and purposes, and that's not exclusive to Christianity either.
No, so. And abolitionists. A lot of the abolitionists were Bible-believing Christians that were using the Bible to show that slavery was abhorrent.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's also interesting, because there were people who were saying using the Bible to show that slavery was a good thing. So it goes both ways. Like you can play with this all day for sure. Yeah.
They have a video on Religulous that shows a girl saying, "We don't hate fags." That's what they said. God hates them. So basically, they use everything in the Bible to fit what they think at that time, and it's not about it's about God. And that's way it seems like that's the way they persuade people into putting it into reality.
Yeah, they're putting the onus on a separate authority, an authority higher than them. In that case, God. Sometimes, like we were saying, it's the Bible. I heard, I was reading on Reddit. I subscribed to a couple different Christian subreddits, and somebody was saying, I wish atheists and other people would understand. It's not that we hate homosexuals. We just hate homosexuality. We don't like it. It's a sin. It's like, but like if you if you have an understanding that that's not something that you can actively control, and your sexuality is a part of your human nature, then you're kind of hating that person. It kind of logically kind of extends to, you are kind of denying the validity of that person's existence at that point. But they don't see homosexuality like that a lot of times. They see it as like a choice in sexuality, which doesn't really fly with how you or I might understand. So
real quick, down the street is University of California, Berkeley. All right. And within campus, there are parking spaces. All right. And some of the parking spaces says parking for Nobel Prize winners. Right. It's sort of tongue in cheek. It's also pretty awesome because there's a lot of Nobel Prize winners that either taught or came from Berkeley. Right. Next time you go to that abortion clinic and you run into that protester and he talks about that museum in Texas where they proved that evolution was false, why don't you go ahead and mention, okay, cool. Why don't you have that museum go submit their findings to the scientific community and prove that evolution isn't real, and they can put up one of those parking spots right in front of their shitty little museum, and we'll see how many people park there, right?
Yeah, that's funny too, because like for every museum that proves evolution is false, there's like 10 museums that prove that evolution is true. So I don't know what the point is there with that. But
he said the guy was also an atheist at one point, so I'm not really sure who it was or where.
That's a trope.
He didn't really.
That's a trope. Could be, could not be. I said I was an atheist too, but my definition of atheism was not the same as most atheists I know, and certainly not the same as I use now. So it happens. But Sean, I hope in your future conversations, you just come at it, hit the ground running, like really talk to these folks, really dig into why they believe what they do, and maybe show a side to atheism that's like, hey, we're not what you think that we are, and we actually, this is a straw man. We actually believe this, so we'll love to hear some more of that
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and go back there when they stop hiding out from the coronavirus. So
yeah, and that's this other scary thing
just
too,
see
because
how
some
it
of them
goes.
are not hiding out from the coronavirus when they really need to be. But anyway, thanks for calling in, Sean. I appreciate it, and
Hey,
good
one more
luck to you.
thing.
Oh man, I hit drop as soon as he was about to say one more thing.
Sorry,
Man,
Sean.
sorry, Sean. If you're watching this, and if it's real important, call into the line again, and then we'll get your message across to me, so I know what you were going to say. But sorry about that. It's the delay in me pressing buttons here. Again, it's not the same as just, hitting the drop button.
Hey, Dan, can I mention something?
Yeah.
Something that you mentioned just now was a lot of these preachers, a lot of these churches aren't isolating themselves during the coronavirus. That's something that we are covering on the Nonprofits, which is a show that I've been guesting on or hosting on from time to time, and that's a topic that I think we'll be talking about on the next one. I was accumulating articles of churches and pastors who were not respecting the quarantine. Okay, they were saying that they were washed in the blood of the Lamb and they're protected from the quarantine and they're from the virus, and their parishioners are protected from the virus, and people are dying. We actually collected so many of those articles that I've started consolidating them into just instances where people are not listening to the authorities, the scientific community, the medical experts. It's so shamefully prevalent that you can't actually feature an article solely on that because you'd be drowned out by hundreds of other instances. And I think that it's a public menace. These people are dangerous. Magical thinking is a dangerous kind of thinking. And the coronavirus is just making it easy to spot.
Yeah, I agree. It's contrarianism for contrarianism's sake. It goes back to this idea that, hey, you're a Christian, you're supposed to be separate from the world. The governments of the world don't matter unless it's your president, and then it does matter. We have to follow him because God chose this nation. I mean, it flip-flops to whatever is convenient for the time, and that's just the way it is, and it's going to keep being that way. Hypocrisy doesn't matter anymore.